Hello everybody, I hope this video finds you well. There's an expression I find myself returning to often, which goes like this. There are times when men lead events, and others when men are led by events to places where they don't want to go. Well, yesterday I was making a video about the coming war with Hezbollah, concerning which I'm going to report today is likely only a couple of weeks away. But I was overtaken by events happening in real time, which I reported about yesterday. Now, concerning that video, many of you were asked to sign into your YouTube or Google accounts to see it. The reason being because I uttered the R word, that four-letter word which refers to when a woman is forced to make love against her will. Uttering that word will cause the video to get flagged by YouTube, along with a warning threatening future sanctions against my channel. I wish I could tell you that this has to do with keeping YouTube family friendly, but it actually has to do with advertisers who are not willing to have their products peddled on videos that contain certain words that may negatively trigger potential buyers. Therefore, in the future, I'm going to have to try to remember to simply say the R word rather than the actual four-letter word in order to avoid being cast into the YouTube penalty box. Now, in yesterday's video, I reported that the Biden administration, together with Egypt and Qatar, have forwarded the following proposal for a ceasefire that would effectively end the war with Hamas. According to the proposal, Israel and Hamas would agree to a 90-day ceasefire in which Israel would agree to withdraw all of its forces to their October 6 positions along their frontier with the Gaza Strip and cease all drone flights over the Gaza Strip. These drones, whose job it is to collect intelligence regarding the whereabouts of Hamas's fighters, leaders, and tunnels, and release thousands of Palestinian security prisoners, including all those captured since October 7, who participated directly in the atrocities of that day. In return, Israel would regain all of its hostages, both the living and the dead. Such an agreement, although technically being called a 90-day ceasefire, would effectively end the war, as nobody expects Israel to restart the war in 3 months' time, because it will no longer be advantageous, both militarily speaking and in the sense that the world's leaders, including those of the United States, would not look favorably on what they would consider now to be an Israeli act of aggression. If you saw yesterday's video, you saw that I was really depressed concerning this new development, but my spirits were somewhat lifted after Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a speech detailing why this latest American proposal is so dangerous to Israel's national interest, as well as his utter rejection of this proposal. Rather than quote him, I'll let you hear the Prime Minister in his own words, which, although spoken in Hebrew, have English subtitles. Take a listen.
We continue the war on all fronts. We do not provide immunity to any terrorist, not in Gaza, not in Lebanon, not in Syria, and not anywhere else. Whoever tries to hurt us, we hurt him. Regarding our hostages, to date we have returned 110 of them back home, and we are committed to returning them all. This is one of the objectives of the war, and military pressure is a necessary condition for its completion. I work in this around the clock, but to be clear, I reject outright the terms of surrender of the monsters of Hamas. In exchange for the release of our hostages, Hamas demands the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza, the release of all the murderers and rapists of the Nukhba, and leaving Hamas intact. If we agree to this, our warriors fell in vain. If we agree to this, we will not be able to guarantee the security of our citizens. We will not be able to return the evacuees safely to their homes. And the next October 7th will only be a matter of time.
Now on to Hezbollah. At the beginning of this war, I shared with you the most likely context of Hamas's decision to invade Israel on October 7th, which is as follows. For years, Iran had been supplying Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria with weapons and training toward the aim of attacking Israel simultaneously with tens of thousands of rockets and missiles, the aim of which would be to overwhelm Israel's anti-missile defense system and would likely kill tens of thousands of Israelis and destroy much of the country. This simultaneous attack was to take place after Iran succeeded to acquire nuclear weapons, which would provide a nuclear umbrella, further limiting Israel's ability to respond to this attack. But Hamas jumped the gun, pun intended, when it went solo and attacked Israel on October 7th without the approval of Iran and the other militias numbered in Iran's axis of evil. Although this greatly angered both Iran and its proxy Hezbollah, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah didn't want to lose face altogether by doing nothing at all. And therefore Nasrallah decided to launch daily attacks on Israel in the form of rocket attacks on Israel in order to be able to say that he's helping Hamas by drawing both Israel's forces and attention away from Gaza toward the border with Lebanon. But maintain these attacks at an intensity below what Nasrallah believed would elicit an all-out destructive Israeli response from which Lebanon would take decades to recover. However, it looks like Nasrallah may have misjudged, as he famously did in 2006, Israel's reaction to his aggression. Back in the summer of 2006, Nasrallah's Hezbollah crossed Lebanon's border with Israel in order to kidnap several Israeli soldiers. Nasrallah presumed that Israel would negotiate a prisoner exchange in which Israel would release thousands of security prisoners and terrorists from its prisons in order to get her soldiers back. Instead, Israel launched a war on Hezbollah, in which much of Lebanon's southern region, where Hezbollah rules, was destroyed, including the southern Beirut suburb of Dahiyeh, where Hezbollah's leadership is holed up in bunkers to this very day. Following that war, Nasrallah repented, if you will, for having kidnapped the Israeli soldiers, saying that if he knew beforehand that Israel's reaction would have been to launch such a destructive war, well, he would have refrained from taking the soldiers captive. Well, it looks like Nasrallah may have similarly erred again when he decided to enter into Israel's current fray with Hamas. He thought that Israel wouldn't react catastrophically to his organizations launching a certain amount of rockets into Israeli territory each day, but would see it for what it was, his attempt to only save face in the face of accusations that his organization was betraying its ally Hamas to an Israeli onslaught. But Israel, in response to Hezbollah's daily attacks, had to evacuate tens of thousands of its citizens from its communities along the border with Lebanon. Citizens who are currently being hosted in hotels throughout all of Israel, and who have said that they refuse to return to their communities on the border with Hezbollah unless Hezbollah retreats to the Litani River, which flows parallel to the border but some 25 miles north of it, per the ceasefire agreement that brought the war of 2006 to an end, but which Hezbollah has since violated by restoring its forces to the border itself. Israel has told the United States that, barring a diplomatic agreement with Lebanon that has Hezbollah's forces retreat from the border back to the Litani River, Israel will be forced to achieve this by means of war. This has caused such panic within the Biden administration, which expresses explicitly and daily that it doesn't want Israel's war with Hamas to morph into a multi-front war, risking an all-out war with Iran itself, that it has sent senior administration officials to the region in order to try and negotiate some diplomatic solution to the conflict before it spirals out of control. It has been reported that Israel has given the Biden administration until the end of January to accomplish this diplomatic solution. Otherwise, Israel will launch an all-out attack on Hezbollah and its host territory, Lebanon. Such a war would see destruction by orders of magnitude far greater than the destruction of Israel's war with Hamas. One source has suggested that up to 500,000 people on both sides could be killed in such a war. This is because Hezbollah has the ability to launch tens of thousands of rockets and missiles, many of them guided, at Israel each day, which would overwhelm the country's defense systems, which couldn't intercept each and every one of these missiles. And on Israel's part, it is said that its reaction would take Lebanon back to the Stone Age. So in closure, think the war of October 7 is drawing to a close? Not necessarily. So buckle up, because it still may take a turn toward a much more apocalyptic outcome. This is Steve, the tour guide, reporting and signing off. Have a great day or evening wherever you are.